Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Gonna call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. I'll go ahead and take a roll call real quick. Mrs. Bryant,
I am here.
Dr. Coleman,
Present.
Mr. James,
Present.
Mr. Melton,
Present.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yeah.
Mrs. Ridley. I see you, Mrs. Ridley. Hopefully I'll come back. Mr. Sanchez,
Present.
Mrs. Springs,
Present.
Mr. Vergamini.
I am here this evening.
Thank you, sir. Kelvin Duvall is here. Mrs. Ridley, I see you there, so Marky. All right, cool. Approval of the minutes. Are there any other corrections to be made to the minutes? Is everybody in agreement that the corrections were made? Is everybody okay with those and that they were accurate?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I know I submitted comments. I'm just trying to make sure following the process is to those comments being shared with the board for discussion and possible inclusion, because I didn't see those comments shared with the board.
Oh, they weren't. I thought Andy sent those out.
I thought they were sent back out.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
I believe an updated version of the bylaws was sent. However, the comments, including one of the recommendations that I made, was not addressed at all.
Oh, no.
I don't know what others may have done. I can just speak for myself.
Okay, so you're saying that the corrections that you suggested were not included?
I'm saying they were not shared. My understanding is they were to be shared with the board for consideration.
Okay,
I don't mind discussing them, but again, just trying to follow the process.
all right, so we're gonna follow the process. Where do y'all?
Can I, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, can we
Oh,
get,
yeah.
Tangi, did you send out the latest?
I
Copy.
did send out the latest updated version of the minutes. I believe Mr. James is referring to comments that he may have submitted that were not included in the minutes, the updated minutes. Is that what you mean, Mr. James?
That is correct. My understanding is the board members were asked to provide their comment. Those recommendations would then be shared with the members of the board and discussed at this meeting.
Okay, so you want to discuss, oh, go ahead, Marvin, I'm sorry.
No, we can go point by point.
Okay. So Tangi, do you have them? I'm sorry, I do not.
Would you like me to share the email that Mr. James sent? Is that how we want to walk through this?
Yeah, hold on, yes.
I recommend that you give the changes and his comments regarding the change, and then we can discuss it.
Sure.
Somebody needs to make a motion first, please, in a second.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I move that the minutes be accepted with changes.
Motion made by Sheila Bryant.
I thought he said minutes with
No,
comments.
it would just be Ms. Bryan, it just would be
Oh,
the
okay.
motion, and then and someone would second, and then whatever
Okay.
change the offer.
All right, so again, I move that the minutes from February 23rd meeting be accepted.
I'll second.
And now during discussion, Mr. James.
Mr. Chair, if at all possible, the email was provided with the comments. I won't go through them verbatim, but I will acknowledge that there was, for me, a concern with the verbiage that was used in the motion regarding the candidates for the administrative hearing board. It didn't match what actually happened in the meeting. The revised version doesn't exactly match what happened in the meeting, while I understand the intent. I just wanted to be clear to the members of the board that it does not match what we talked about in the meeting. And I think that we need to make sure that we do that. And I think the intent is important as well. So I just want to acknowledge that. And then my second point in the email referenced the lengthy discussion that we had regarding the strategic plan outline. One of the things that I asked was whether some of the decisions that we made could be captured in the meeting minutes as well, so that we have a record of those decisions. I'll give you an example, which was that we would not include our standard operating procedures within that document. I was just asking that some of those decisions that we made, long or short term, we captured votes and things about those, that they just be captured in the meeting minutes so that we have them as we're moving forward. Those were the two general issues that I brought and recommendations. Again, one, that the motion reflect exactly what happened in the meeting, and that we consider adding those decisions for the strategic plan, strategic outline, be included in the meeting minutes so that as we're progressing, we do have a record of that. I think that that was important. I also think it's important that if we set out on a process and we say we're going to ask for those changes in advance and they'll be shared, it's important that we share those too, that we are transparent. I think that that's very important, that this board makes the decision on what our meeting minutes reflect. And that was my concern at the last meeting. That was my concern this meeting, is that, again, they reflect. So my two recommendations stand as they are.
So, Mr. Chair, can I respond?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So as it relates to, so there are a couple of things. So as it relates to Mr. James' point, sorry, about, I thought that his email was sent out as part of what was sent back out. So if that didn't occur, I thought it did. But I want to talk substantively about a discussion that Mr. James and I had today so that you will know my position as it relates to that. There were some things that were incorrect. For example, Mr. James in his notes changes, there was a wrong date. It said the 23rd, which was an incorrect date as it related to the meeting, and also that it was done in closed session. That was corrected. There was and this may be because I think probably Tangi thought that she was addressing some of them and didn't send up in whole. The second one had to do with the comment in the minutes that made reference to the administrative hearing. It said hearing committee instead of hearing board. That was corrected. There was another one that made reference to and referred to the ACC. That is in fact correct. So there was some confusion, and I had indicated to Mr. James that I would speak to that in this regard. When you all made the decision about who was selected for the AHB, those names were to be transmitted to the ACC. And that is what was in the minutes. But I think we had never had a discussion about where those names went. So it was in fact correct. What we did do was change the verbiage so that it was clear that the names were being transmitted, because that was where they were to be transmitted, not that those people were being placed on the ACC. Understood how that might be confusing, so we changed the language in that. The other one that was changed, and Mr. James, at any time, if I'm not being reflective, please let me know, was that in your motion, Ms. Bryant, you talked about two candidates. In the minutes, it makes reference to the names of those candidates, which was discussed during the meeting. And I'm sure you all have been in meetings where people say, so moved, so motion. And what I said to Mr. James was, had the names been incorrect, we would not have included it. But the names were correct, and she made reference to the individuals that were being selected. So that was included in the minutes. And the other change that we made had to do with the fact that it said the top two. Well, the decision was that it would be anyone receiving a majority of the vote would be included. Minutes can be stated a lot of different ways. It was clear, and as I said to Mr. James, if we had put Bo Diddley was selected, that would have been clearly wrong. But the intent was that we say those people who were, and that you didn't say it in your motion, didn't change the fact that those were the two people. And so we left those names in there. Going to the next section, which was the strategic plan. If you all recall, what I said to you all was the intent of the strategic plan outline was to get information from you all as to what you thought on those particular things to help inform how we wrote the strategic plan. We will be having a discussion with respect to whether or not we're going to have a short-term, a long-term, or a hybrid, short and long. We are going to be having a conversation, about whether or not, which was the one, Mr. James, you used as your example, whether or not the rules of procedure will be included in the strategic plan. The questions for you all was, what should I include in the outline? It was not a decision about what you would do. And so, for example, there was evenly divided in those of you who responded back in the survey that was given to you about whether it should be short-term, long-term, or both. All we were trying to do was get a sense of what the group wanted to do to include it. It was not a formal decision as it related to whether that would happen or not. And that was the discussion that Mr. James and I had again today. And the other thing that we discussed is that we have recorded minutes for everything that we do. So I've asked Tangi at the bottom of all minutes to then include a full recording of those minutes are available on YouTube or on the website. So I think I'm going to push back a little bit to Mr. James, one, because there is that recorded transcript. There is some discretion as to how verbatim or how not verbatim you write them. But I do believe if you read them, they accurately reflect the discussions that were had at the last meeting. And my question to you all was not to make a decision. It was to get some kind of poll to see what we should include when we actually have the strategic plan.
So my question to you, Marjo, is so the items which Mr. James suggested and that were indeed in error, they have been updated into the minutes and incorporated into the minutes?
And let me be, I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Yes, the dates were clearly wrong. That has been updated. Clarification of what we meant when we were transmitting to the ACC, that has been changed. The fact that it was in closed meeting, that has been changed. Mr. James, I don't think brought up the one about the top two versus, the vote of a majority. That has been changed because that was incorrect. What has not been changed is saying that there were decisions made on the strategic plan. And what has not been changed is the fact that we added the two names of those individuals that were in fact selected by this body to be transmitted to the ACC. Those were the two things were not changed.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mr. James,
Yes. Is
that-
this a question for me or?
oh, well, was that suffice what Marjo said? Was that okay?
Well, two things. One, I think I see Tangi's hand, so I want to recognize
Okay.
someone else raised their hand before me. So
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am, Tangi.
I just want to make a point of clarification, just so I'm under the correct understanding. So in our last meeting, it was decided that if board members have any edits or recommendations, that they should be sent to Mara Jo or the legal counsel and myself. So I did not know to send the comments to all of the board members. And if that is going to be a violation of the Public Meetings Act, because I think that's why one of the decision was made. So I sent out the minutes because I thought that was what was asked of me when I updated the minutes. So regardless, moving forward, should I send Mr. James's email to the entire board? Because I can do that now.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to try to make it easy. And I'm sure y'all are going to be very mad at me. And so I apologize in advance. You will get the minutes as Ms. Allen sends them, and any changes you want to make will be done at the meeting.
Okay,
That's fair.
And discussed in full. So they won't be sent to Ms. Allen or me in advance. They will be posed at the meeting. That may end up taking more time, but I just want to end any confusion on either Ms. Allen's part or anybody here. And if there was some confusion, Mr. James, about that, accept that as an apology for that, but all minutes will be dealt with in open session.
thank you, Mara Jo. Thank you, Tangi.
So should I send Mr. James's email? I want to make sure.
No, no.
Okay,
I
thank
would
you. That's
answer.
all I needed to know.
Yeah, it'll all be done in open session. Whether it's Mr. James or any member of the board.
Work for me. All right, cool. Thank you.
Well, then I'll follow up, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So again, to the board members, I believe the meeting minutes are the record of this board, and the meeting minutes should reflect the work that this board did. And we do have a copy of that. There's a video recording. And the motion and what we did should mirror that. I do understand that there's a process that follows. I totally get that. And as far as those names being referred to the ACC, I think that for me is news. It may be for you as well. I didn't understand that the process was, I thought they were appointed to the board, but now I'm being told, no, they're referred to the ACC. That's a little bit of breaking news, but something we can get clarity on. That's fine. That's just not what we voted on. And I just wanted to be clear on what we voted on and the meeting minutes to reflect exactly what we voted on. And I understand using the names. I think that's great too. But again, I think these are the record of this board, and it should be reflective of what we decided, so that if there's any question, we can go back to the meeting minutes and know exactly what we decided. So I think that that's what it should be reflective of. And again, my other point was we spent over an hour discussing the strategic plan. We did make some decisions, and I understand those weren't votes, but there were some guidance that we provided as it related to that document. And again, for me, capturing it in there is the opportunity to make sure we know that as we're moving forward for our future reference as well. Again, they're the meeting minutes of this body. And so for me, that's why I presented what I had, and which is an email, which I would, Mr. Chair, prefer that is shared with the board. That would be my preference, as that's what was discussed at the last meeting, is that's how it would be shared. That was my expectation. I think is a reasonable expectation. But as it relates to us right here, right now, we have to make a decision regarding the meeting minutes from the last meeting. I think that the language should reflect what was voted on, the motion by Ms. Bryant, second by Mr. Vergamini. There wasn't a modification for it. Adding the names, I don't have a problem with it. Again, I just think it should reflect what we voted on and understand that process, and that we should include the additional information regarding some of the decisions that were made. If it's not the will of this board, I am 100% in line with that. I just think that this board should be the one to make the decision, not to get a filtered version of the comments.
Let me go back one more. It's not filtered. And let me be clear, Mr. O'Neill, it's not filtered, particularly since you have a recorded copy of everything that was stated. I did not, and I want to be clear again, I did not ask, there were no decisions made with respect to those issues. Those issues are going to be discussed at the at the strategic planning session. The other thing is there is some discretion on the part of doing minutes. Some minutes are almost verbatim. Some minutes do a highlight, some are less, some are more. In this particular case, I think the spirit and intent of what was discussed is reflected in those highlighted minutes. If we did not have the recordings to go along with them, I might have a different opinion. But we do have that. And if somebody wants to know that specificity, which may not be included in these minutes, then they have the opportunity because it's in both the website and it's in the YouTube for anybody to go back. And
No, let me say
where
something.
there
Let me
is
say
some
something.
No,
Let me say
Mr.
something.
O'Neill, I'm
Yeah,
not
sure.
finished, just like if you're not finished.
Yeah, but it's too much.
I
here.
know what I asked. It doesn't matter, please. I know what I asked of this body. I asked to help us finish the outline, but decisions as it related to the specificity of what you all will do in that strategic plan was not decided. And to say it was would be incorrect. And so not putting those pieces in there does in no way take away from the discussion, hour and a half or more, that was had, because it's in the recorded version. Sorry, Mr. O'Neill, but I wanted a chance to finish my comment.
Yeah, well, let me finish mine. What I'm saying, whoever is taking the minutes should use the recordings to record them, to put the minutes together, so we won't have this mixed up. We don't have this same long period. And then, like you keep on going back to the recordings, if Tangi or whoever is writing minutes, they should use that as the guide of what's went on in the meeting and use that, not no interpretation from someone else. That's all I was going to say.
Well, I need to make a comment at this point. Tangi goes through those recordings line by line, second by second, so her minutes are developed from the recording. She does, let me finish. She does a summary, not a verbatim minute. She does a summary of the recording. And I think that's what we're having a discussion about, of whether or not those summaries accurately reflect what's said. But she reviews those minutes in the recordings in its entirety.
I'm not attacking Tangi or nothing. I was just saying, evidently the summaries, I'm just going by what's been discussed lately. The summary, according to Mr. James, did not reflect what we had discussed. That's all I'm saying. The summary was off. That's all I'm saying. That's what I got.
Okay, and this is our opportunity to correct those things. So that's what we're working on. Mr. Melton, I'm sorry. See your hand, sir. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I think, again, just trying to be solution oriented. I don't know if this has to be a polar issue. I think, there is room in the middle where I feel like, again, if we're capturing the essence and the spirit of what's decided and the decisions that we are making, I don't see any harm in that. But again, if there's something that's inaccurate, or if the interpretation is wrong and we have an opportunity to make a correction, I think we should feel very confident about verbalizing those corrections and suggesting those changes be made. But again, if I personally do not think it's necessary to have a transcript. If that's something that we think is necessary, then perhaps, that's some technology that we need to take advantage of. I believe you can do that in Zoom if necessary. And maybe that's an attachment with the meeting minutes. But again, I think this is just something that perhaps we should look at it as a collective and determine if it's, what are the consequences of not having something that's literally a transcript of what was written versus us trying to capture the essence.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Melton. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sanchez.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, I agree fully with Mr. Melton. The minutes are to be reflective of the general gist of the conversation. Usually minutes for most things, it's a couple sentences per section. And I think what would be helpful, and what I'm kind of gathering from what Marva Joe has said, the reason to not share the email is because if there are specific changes that you would like to make, Mr. James, I think it would be best that you give a specific language and then allow the board to vote if we want to accept or not, versus kind of having if you share the email, this needs to be public, the changes that are the specific language. So if you would like to make those motions, then I think that would probably be the best way for us to just kind of finish out this portion of the minutes, is if you have exact language changes from the version that we have available right now that Tangi sent to us, and language that you would like to see amended into it, then you can present that and we can just vote them up or down as a board.
Might I offer, Mr. Chair, a suggestion? Because
Yes,
there
ma'am.
seems to be some confusion on the part of Mr. James, or after our conversation, maybe I had a read of it. If we might put a hold on them so that, in fairness to Mr. James, he might have an opportunity to write the exact language that he wants it changed to for consideration, as Mr. Sanchez said, at our next meeting, as opposed to trying to craft it at this very minute, and just put those on hold for the next meeting.
Is everyone agreeing to that, Mr. James?
Mi-
I'm sorry, Ms. Brown, go ahead.
Mr. James, do you have language specific language that you want to correct on the minutes as written?
I can provide specific language. I do agree with you all. I can provide that specific language. And as it pertains to specifically the motion, so that it reflects what we actually did, and the intent, I think that there is a way to get there, 100%. I can provide that specific language. And then the other piece for me was, and again, it's the board's decision on whether we include some of those decisions that were made, just so we have some of that information. And I totally understand what Marva Joe's saying. Those aren't things that we're bound by. Totally get that. Totally get that. You know, we didn't make a vote on to go and meet with the chiefs. We just kind of did a poll, but it made it in there as a decision to do that. So it works in some instances and it doesn't work in others. But Mr. Chair, my recommendation, hearing from others, is to table this for now. I can provide that to you. It can be shared with the board in advance so you all can read it and review it. And then at the next meeting, we can address the meeting minutes in their entirety.
Okay. Oh, I thought it was on me. Okay.
So the only other part of that for me is there is a motion on the table. And so if we're going to table it, we have to do something with that motion that has already been moved and seconded.
Yeah,
I'm
the maker of the motion can table it, can accept the table.
Yes, I will table the motion. Until the next meeting. And just for clarification, I think, Mr. James, the point is that you will provide the language during the meeting so that we can all vote on specific language that you want to include. I think.
My takeaway, Mr. Chair, and others, is I will submit that. Let me know where it needs to go, because again, I don't want any problems. So let me know where I need to send that proposed language. And then if it can be shared with you all in advance, that way you can read that proposed language and we can then vote on amending taking those changes in at the next meeting.
Mr. James, Ms. Bryan is correct. What we've asked is, at the next meeting, as we go through the minutes, at those sections that you believe should be modified, you will say that as part of the motion and not send it in.
So I won't do it in advance.
Yes, sir.
No problem.
Yep.
I will take it that way. Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bryan, for.
Thank you, everyone, for that. Okay.
clarifying.
Anyone else? All right, cool. So we will table that till the next meeting. All right. Administrative Hearing Board update. Denise, are you there?
She's on mute.
Yeah, I see. I don't know if that was what she put.
No, I'm here. I was just trying to get to my unmute button. Just a brief update on where we are with them. They have been scheduled for training. They go to training, start training next week, and one of the last guy is going to be trained in May, which was the most convenient date. The training dates were set by the state, so we had to pick. There's only one set of training dates per month, so that's how that kind of worked out, and why the dates are so far apart. It works better for their individual schedules. That's pretty much the update. I just wanted to let you know that we have moved forward with getting them in place so that they can begin as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, cool. Moving on. The planning update.
Had a question. I think Ms. Bryant had her hand up as well.
I apologize.
Yes, my question was whether the people that we recommended were admitted to the board.
Yes, they accepted those positions. Your decisions were final. We just had to contact them to see if they accepted the positions. They accepted the positions.
Okay, so there is a little bit of confusion because I thought we said that we were recommending those. And so we did appoint them.
You did appoint them. Sharing the information with the administrative charging committee was a process that was in place, because their budget and everything was administered under them. That may not stay that way, but we were referring those names to them so that they could schedule the training and everything moving forward and handle all the onboarding for them.
Okay, so just to be clear, the two names, or I think it was two that we submitted,
Jana Parker and James Freeney
are part of the Administrative Hearing Board.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. James.
So Ms. Bryant, just
Oh.
finer point on that. So this board affirmed those names for selection. Those names were then transmitted to the ACC. Because they carry, it's complicated, and we don't quite understand, but they carry the budget and everything else for the AHB for some reason.
Thank you, Marva Jo. Yes, sir, Mr. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is regarding the AHB appointments. Back in December, we made a decision to advertise so that we could build up the pool to at least 10. Is there a status on where we are with that advertisement so that we can start to move to get up to that pool of individuals?
Denise can chime in on this, but I don't think that there is a status of.
No, I haven't been given a specific directive on when you want to start the advertisement. Whenever you all decide that you want to do the advertisement, I will make sure that happens.
But follow up, Mr. Chair, and that is, I thought we made that decision back in December. If I recall, and the meeting minutes reflect, the question was how long it needed to be posted, when we could get it up. We were trying to those were the follow-up action items. So it is my understanding, and Mr. Chair, please clarify, but I thought we decided as a board that we would go forward with a public advertisement. And that was even a recommendation, I believe, that we got from council with the county to do a public advertisement and to create a pool as well. So I thought we made that decision.
You made the decision that we would do that, but the first step was to review the applications from the council and the county executive for those people who were not accepted for the other positions. And I am waiting for you all to decide when you want to. Yes, you did decide to do it, but when you actually want to start this advertisement and put it on the webpage.
And I do want to correct we went to council to say, could we do a pool? It was not her recommendation that we do a pool. We just wanted to make sure we were allowed.
Thank you. Ms.
So
Bryant.
that decision would be ours.
I would like to make a motion that we commence advertising on our website April 1st for additional participants to sit on the Administrative Hearing Board, or rather to be nominated as candidates for the Administrative hearing board. April 1st.
Okay, so we're going to advertise, and I thought that we were going to look at some of the people, the applicants that we already had and reach out to them to see if they were interested.
I thought that's what we did when we selected those people who we already have, that we do have. That's what we did. That's what we did.
Okay.
I second the motion.
I would second the
Okay.
motion so that it doesn't die.
Mr. Melton seconded.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Melton.
So let's go around and take a vote. Dr. Coleman?
Aye.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Ridley?
You're on mute, baby.
Oh, where is she? Okay, you're on mute. We'll
Get
come
off
back.
mute.
We'll come back around. She'll do it. Thank you, sir. Mr. Sanchez, I'll come back to you, Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mrs. Springs,
Aye.
Mr. Vergamini.
Yes.
There you go. Thank you, sir. And Mrs. Bryant,
Yes.
here, yes. And did I miss anyone? Oh, Mr. Melton,
Aye.
Mrs. Ridley.
Yes.
Go. All right, cool. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, did you vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Point of clarification, do we need to specify the language to be included, or are we going to use the same application as was posted previously?
So I think what we should, go ahead. I'm sorry. Somebody was gonna say something.
I was going to say that I have the language that the county executive office used. What I can do is put together an announcement and provide it to each of you, and you can respond individually to me with your comments on that, and I can share the consolidation of those comments with you guys. If that is okay. I mean, I don't know what process you want to use for this.
I'm fine with that. Ms. Bryan, can you give me the date you said again in your motion?
April 1st.
Okay.
So we have another meeting before that where we can decide if there's specific language that we want to include.
Okay.
I'm just curious what our threshold might be, whether that be a certain number of candidates where we would close it, or if there's a time period where we supply a deadline. I'm more in favor of a threshold when we get to a certain number. I know there was some discussion about it being open in perpetuity, but I don't know. I just don't want it to get up to like 200.
Right.
Well, I think until we have 10, that we keep it open. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, Mr. James.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we actually add this to the next agenda to get in some of those details that Mr. Melton is discussing. And so I think we've now given the staff enough of the direction that we want to move in so that we can do that. If we can get a full presentation on the execution of that advertisement at the next meeting, that I think will allow us to answer some of those questions that Mr. Melton and others may have about the process.
Okay,
I'm cool with that.
thank you, sir.
Do I need to amend my motion, or is that good?
I think that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Melton, for that. All right, strategic planning update. Marva Jo, are you still there? Yes, ma'am, you're there. Can you give us a brief update about that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We made 2 requests of the board. The first was as it related to questions that were included in a proposed outline for the strategic plan. I received responses back for those survey questions from Dr. Coleman, Ms. Ridley, Mr. Melton. Yeah, I think that was the 4. I received 4, I'm sorry. And
I
Mr. Yeah.
submitted. I submitted a response.
Did too.
Okay, and Ms. Brown, I did not get anything from you that I'm aware of, Mr. O'Neill. But let me just, those are the ones I knew about. I was going to ask if others had submitted, and I also got comments, thank you, from Mr. Vergamini as it related to some of the topics raised in the outline. If there is someone who submitted it and I did not get it, please let me know, because those are the ones that I received.
I thought that I sent mine to Denise. That's the email I sent it to.
I
that's
don't, I'm sorry. I didn't receive it.
Okay, I'll tell you, I'll send it again.
Okay, anybody else, Ms. Brown? I'm gonna look again. I didn't see it. Denise, do you have hers? And I just didn't get it.
Ms. Bryant, I emailed you, Ms. Bryant. I think hers was the first one that came
Okay,
in.
I'm no, Ms. Coleman's, I think. But
Ms. Coleman's, Dr.
Coleman's
Coleman's were first.
Okay, well, Ms. Bryant, I
was
know
the
Ms.
first.
Bryant. Let me check my
Okay,
email.
it wasn't.
again.
So it wasn't in the hand one. So I'll Ms. Bryan, I apologize for that. I'll go back to make sure I captured your comments in what I've been putting together.
Okay.
So let me
just-
then,
I'm sorry.
let me just, Dr. Coleman, Ms. Ridley, Ms. Bryant, and Mr. Melton. And then comments from Mr. Vergamini. Is that accurate?
Harvard Joe, this is Carlo. Check again. I sent you something as well. But I can send it again if not. Just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, part of the reason I'm bringing it up, because I want to make sure I have everybody's, and if I'm missing it, I certainly do not want to not include it in what we're putting together. The staff is meeting on March 15th, so I want to make sure. And for those that I didn't shout out, I apologize, because I'm just going by the ones I'm looking at in hard copy. So what we are doing from that is we are synthesizing everything that was sent, both in terms of the questions and the comments, and that will be part of what we do for the strategic plan. The other thing that I asked of the board was to give us a poll of when they preferred to do the meetings for the strategic plan, and I want to share the responses to that. There were 3 options. The first was either the 2nd or 4th, which is our normal dates. The second was another day of the week. And then the third one was a weekend. And I will read what I got back. And again, if I'm incorrect or inaccurate, please let me know. Danny V said as his second choice, the established meetings. Dr. Coleman said the established meeting. Marsha Ridley said the established meetings. Chair Duvall said the established meetings. Carlos, Mr. Sanchez said the established meetings, and Ms. Springs said the established meetings. The one with the week outside of the established meetings, Mr. Vergamini, that was his first choice, Mr. James and Mr. Melton. And for the weekend, it was Ms. Bryant, and then Mr. Sanchez said that was his second choice. So based on those numbers, it appears that the dates will be the 2nd and the 4th, which are our standing meetings that we already have. And having said that, we want to propose having the first meeting on February 22nd, which would be 2 weeks from now, which would have been our next meeting.
You mean
If
March?
Of March, thank you.
Mhm.
But given some of the other issues that come up, if the group would prefer it to be the 2nd Wednesday of April to start the strategic plan, we are fine with that as well. So, Mr. Chair, it will be at the board's pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Just your hand up.
Yes, I recommend strongly recommend that we have this meeting in person. whenever it is, whether, I mean, my recommendation was to have it on a weekend, like take a 4-hour block and just do it. But if we want to do it during the week, that's fine. I just thought that our minds would be fresher on the weekend, not after having worked all day, that we would be more open and energized with great ideas on a weekend when we have time to chill. But at any rate, I think it should be in person.
Okay.
I didn't send it in, but I thought it was the same way. So we had like a retreat, a 4-hour retreat or something like that, you know.
I thought it was a good idea, Ms. Bryant and Ms. O'Neill as well, but I just thought about everybody's schedule on the weekend and just what day it would be. So I thought it would be easier for the purposes of going forward, moving faster to do a regular meeting. So that's why I voted that way, just for not having to, any scheduling conflicts, because there's a lot of us, and the weekends we have, everybody has different schedules, and we're trying to get this done quickly. So.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Brown.
So, Mr. Chair, if it is going to be on the 2nd or the 4th, could the board let me know their pleasure of whether we would start on the 22nd of March or whatever that second Wednesday in April?
Okay, that would be the 5th. Oh, you said the second weekend in the second Wednesday in April. Okay. Okay. So, okay. So Marjo, do you want us to email that to you
No, if we could do that
now?
right now, it would
Okay.
be exceedingly helpful.
All right. So the 22nd and did you say the 20? You said the 22nd and let me see. So that would be April 5th.
Anybody want to change their vote?
Yeah. If we're gonna do a strategic plan, we're gonna do it the regular meeting. We ain't got no time limit on the meeting because we're putting together a plan now.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We can't do it 1 hour and we got to do it again. That's why I was saying the weekend. Just remember that thing. It ain't no time limit for strategic meeting.
Understand that. I see your hand, Mr. Vergamini. I understand that, but for some reason, even our short meetings go long and they become very lengthy, right? And I think that we need to focus on trying to do to condense them the best way we can. I understand the strategic planning, I get it, but even the short meetings go very long. We can say 4 hours, it'll be 8 hours. Whatever is best for the group, I'm in favor of, but I'll just go.
And we are going to split it up, Mr. Chair, because it is a lot on that strategic plan. So we will probably do it in sections.
Okay, Mr. Vergamini, you had your hand up.
Forgive my ignorance. I just have maybe I'm unclear as to how we plan to approach it. Are we as a group writing this strategic plan, or are we doing some input? And I'm asking just to kind of give me a heads up and help me understand sort of, so I show up prepared in the right way of, are we going through it, or are we gonna looking at, okay, some templates of what's written based on our suggestions, or based on the voting and the input that we provided? Or is this something where, what is our level of effort when we do get together to do the strategic plan? Or is it talking about what's going to go in there and then it's going to go back to staff for some drafts and stuff? I'm okay any way it's going to go. I'm just kind of curious as to how some of it's going to work.
So there are a couple of things. There are certain sections that will be done in the whole group. For example, the mission, the goals, which are shorter. Tangi is doing a presentation and recommended, she's putting together a community outreach plan based on the comments made in the outline that were responded to by you all. You all will be working from that recommended plan. The same thing on the assessments. You will be working from recommendations that have been created by staff. You will be responding to. There were suggestions by a number of you that we then have subcommittees to deal with some of the more finer points, and we're going to be recommended that we have subcommittees for certain of those items once we narrow it down.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
Thank you, Marvin. So, where was I? Where's my calendar?
We were still on the date that the board.
Yeah,
preferred.
put my calendar back. Okay, so the 22nd is our next meeting. Are we going to use that meeting?
Oh, we might as well get started. Is there something?
Who said that? I know that was Miss Hardworking Bryant, so.
Very, very reluctantly, she said that. Very, very reluctantly.
Thank you, Miss Bryant. I wasn't gonna be mad if you said April, but I knew you were.
All right.
Well, we only have a very short time left in this fiscal year, so.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree. Sooner rather than later.
22nd, okay.
So if Mrs. Sanchez, you're gonna send back, and again, I apologize. I get many emails, so I apologize for that. And Mr. O'Neill, if you've indicated you sent it, if you would send it back to Denise again, because
I
neither
sent
one of
it,
us
I
received
think
it.
I sent it to him just a few minutes ago. I thought she should have got it. That's it didn't go.
Okay. So I will make sure.
I have it now.
Okay. Well, I will say the ones that I've received have been very helpful in trying to finalize the outline. So thank you very much.
So is everybody okay with our next meeting on the 22nd? Okay, see the head shake. Dr. Combs like, yep, that works for me. Okay. Thank you, Marvin. That was it, Marvin Joe?
Was that in your 15 minutes, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. You got 30 seconds to spare. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm done.
All right, cool. Association. The meeting that we had last week, I believe it was. Denise, you attended that, or Marvin Joe? Would you go ahead and speak to that, please?
Marvin Joe, Tangent, and I, and Ms. Bryant, Mr. Sanchez, and Ms. Ridley all attended that meeting. And basically what we did, it was an introductory meeting. We just introduced the panel and they gave their backgrounds. And the reception was very good, and we got some positive feedback from them.
Okay.
There were others who attended it, but they weren't in person, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I forgot Ms. Springs and Mr. Melton and Dr. Coleman all attended virtually. And they were able to also introduce themselves and tell what they bring to the process.
Okay.
And that's basically the only thing that really happened. There were some other presentations, but from our group, that's what we did.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who attended that. Thank you.
Well, except that we got to meet Mr. Bennett, who I didn't know had moved into that seat, so.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
A couple questions. Now, did the administrative charging board made a presentation too?
They didn't make a presentation. They came and they gave a request for information. And they were prepared to answer questions, but there were no real questions.
Okay. Number two, now when are we gonna meet them? Are we gonna meet them as a committee? Are they gonna just have a meet and greet like we did with the police chief? The committee, the board, I mean?
We are talking, Tangent and I are talking about that, and we're talking with the president of that association so that we can get another meeting on the books with them.
No, I'm talking about the administrative charging board committee. I'm talking about.
Okay, that's next on the agenda.
Okay,
so I'll address that when it comes up on the agenda next.
And the third question is, now this meeting with them is not, it doesn't meet our goal that we met with the police chief as it relates to our reporting?
It says that we're supposed to meet quarterly.
Yeah, and that does not count as a quarterly meeting, do it?
It counts as our first quarterly meeting because it was low hanging fruit. The next quarterly meeting will be a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, because that's their meeting. That's really not our meeting. You know what I
It's
mean?
we
their
were
meeting.
there.
They said that we are to meet quarterly. It didn't say who had to host the meeting.
So you're saying every time they have, if next quarter they have a police chiefs association, we go into their meeting with them.
I'm
Do
saying
that.
that we can attend that meeting. I'm not saying that that's where our next meeting would be. What I said was that Tangi and I would be working on deciding where and how we're going to do the next meeting. But it doesn't have to be with them. We can invite them to come to us. But I think since we already have a captured audience there, it might be a good idea to have some meetings, you know, with them. But we can also plan our own meeting.
But okay, I don't believe it. I just thought that our mission was that they are supposed to tell us, and we're supposed to ask them questions. What are the trims in public safety and things like that? I don't see how we can do that in their meeting where they're controlling the meeting. That's what I'm saying. But go ahead. I don't want to belabor it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Angie, I see your hand up.
I just want to add that we would have about approximately 15 minutes before the PCA PGC, because they do have a heavy agenda, as everyone was sent the agenda. So presenters only have about 15 minutes. So we need to keep that in mind if we want to utilize their space and their time to host our meetings. Whereas if we host it ourselves, we could have however long we determine to really have a full discussion, if that's how the board decides. I just want to put that in there.
And that's what I was saying, you know, I mean.
And I also wanted to add that when we decide what we want to talk to them about, we can decide that we want to host our own meeting and plan our own meeting. If we want to just, again, go and see what they're talking about and ask some, you know, some very brief questions, and maybe at that time we would want to go to their meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to count as one of our quarterly meetings, but I think we probably do need to interface with them a little bit more frequently.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Mr. James, I see your hand, sir.
Chair, my question was, I was reading in the minutes, there was some reference to questions sent to the chiefs, and I was wondering what the status of the response to those questions, as well as what were the questions that were sent to the association or to the chiefs.
There weren't any questions sent. No questions were presented to us, so we didn't send it. We haven't sent any questions.
Okay, I'll follow up with a little more specificity, because they made reference to the questions that were sent to them or responding to them from Ms. Allen or PAB. And so I was curious about that. And then also just closing the loop, if I understand correctly, we, at the last meeting, Ms. Bryant and Chair were going to put together some talking points, but if I understand correctly, that did not occur. I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
You're correct. That did not occur.
Got it. All right. Just their meeting minutes refer to receiving questions from the PAB, and I just wanted to follow up on what those were.
They didn't receive any questions from us.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, thank you for that. And it's moving on to new business, and Denise, you're right back up, administrative charge committee process.
With administrative, let me just go back to the agenda real quick. The administrative charge committee process that I want to talk about was basically to give you an idea of how many cases that they have so far, and to let you know that I have been talking with their program administrator about how we're going to begin, how and when we're going to be getting those cases. I think, and Calvin can correct me if I'm wrong, I think as of last night, they have completed about 11 cases. And I think there's only one so far that is ready to be referred to us. I have asked for the executive package on that so that I can begin to look, so we can begin to look at what types of information they're compiling and how they plan to send it to us. So when I spoke to Isabel yesterday, she was going to get that information to me on today so that I could have it for tonight's meeting, but I did not receive it today. So I can't tell you exactly what's going to be in that. I have also asked that we get on their calendar or they get on our calendar so that we can talk to them about the interface between our two entities. And I will, by the next meeting, I will have a date for that. Are there any questions? I was hoping to have more information about the process, but again, I didn't get the information that I thought I'd have in hand.
Okay. Any questions for Denise on that? Okay. Denise, you still have 15 minutes left. No,
I still have all that, okay.
I'm just joking.
Mm.
All right. Any announcement? Does admin have any announcements?
I have one announcement. I wanted to announce that the new member has been selected. His name is Daniel Amato Jones. He was sworn in on yesterday. Was it yesterday? Today is Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday. He seems to be a very nice young man. And he will be attending, Calvin, you asked me to have him come to the meeting on the 22nd.
Yes, ma'am.
That's my only announcement.
Okay.
What part of the county you from?
I promise you, I don't remember, but I think he's from the Highsville area.
Okay.
Thank you. Marva Joe, did you have anything? Marva Joe. Oh, I don't know. Maybe she dropped. Okay, cool. Angie, did you have anything? Okay, no news, nothing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Denise, did you want to introduce Mr. Bennett to the board?
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
Did you want to introduce Mr. Bennett to the board?
I think, Mr. Bennett, weren't you introduced to the board already? But we can do that again. He is on the meeting, but he attended one of our meetings before, and I thought we had done the introduction. I am sorry if I didn't introduce him, but Mr. Bennett has replaced Donnell Turner as the Inspector General, the Director of the Office of Integrity, Compliance, and Police Accountability. He comes to us by way of Atlanta, Georgia. And Mr. Bennett, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I did meet with the board early on. I believe it was your first meeting. Again, just a pleasure to be here. Some of you I did see at the police chiefs meeting, so you heard a little bit of my background. It's primarily in inspector general work. I do have an ethics background as well. I was the chief investigator of an ethics commission, and I also have a police background. My initial professional career started in law enforcement with the Broward Sheriff's Office, which is located in Broward County in the Fort Lauderdale area. So I do have a wealth of knowledge across the board in dealing with these types of issues, both on the law enforcement side and of course the oversight side. I do want to say just thank you to all of you for your commitment and level of service to this process. It can be messy at times, but it's a good thing. It's a needed thing. So I do want to say thank you to all of you for your commitment in doing this the right way. And I'm available to answer any questions that you may have in the future. And my information, I'll make sure it's passed on to all of you. So if you have questions or any issues or just want to talk, please reach out, and I'll make sure that I make myself available. And just future meetings, I may be here, I may not be here. I'll just be a fly on the wall, just kind of watching what you guys do. I don't necessarily have to speak every time, but I am ingrained in this process, and I want to see it make sure that it is successful. So again, thank you to all, and I'll be seeing you soon, I'm sure, at your retreat.
So you say you was at our meeting, in-person meeting. That was back in November. You said the first meeting, isn't that one?
No, not in person. I was on screen because I was still in Atlanta at the time. But I did speak to the board initially. I believe it was your first meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw you guys in November. I think it was December meeting that I spoke to you guys.
a long time ago, bro.
I don't
I know.
recall. That's why I was a little bit confused because I heard you say that you'd only been there a couple of weeks. And so.
Yes, I started, what was it, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. But I knew the process, what was happening. So I was kind of monitoring the process from afar. You know, I guess Mrs. Stanton jumped the gun a little bit, say, hey, you want to address the board? I wasn't necessarily prepared for it at the time, but knowing what was happening, I think everybody was really excited about this process. So I had no problems, you know, just saying a few words. But now that I'm officially here, I'm available to all of you as needed.
Great, thank you. Thank you for popping in. We should just bombard them with questions right now while we have them.
Well,
So
I have to apologize if some of you didn't get a chance to meet him, but I know he's attended maybe at least 2 or 3 of our meetings.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
A fly on the wall.
So,
Ms. Brown, you have your hand up again? I'm sorry, Mr. O'Neill.
no, I was just gonna say, Denise, you can provide us with his email and it's contact information.
Yes, I can make sure you get that.
Okay.
You had your hand up again, Mrs. Bryan, I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. So I don't know if we acted on I don't know if I should make a motion that we have our next meeting in person if we're going to be discussing the strategic plan. I think we should, I mean, the very least, if we're not going to do it on the weekend, then we should do it on in person.
That's the 22nd, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Calvin. The administrative charging committee, does that conflict with their meeting? Because we're going to have to use that bigger room.
Can I check and get back to you? I believe so. Let me check because I think last night that let me double check and I'll get back to everyone first thing in the morning. And if not, then Mrs. Brown, I think that we should do that. That good? You said wonderful. I read your lips.
Or have it in our regular meeting room or something.
Okay.
It's going to be really tight in there because they haven't changed the conference table yet.
I understand, but I think we should meet in person regardless.
Okay.
somewhere.
Let me get that information first, and then we'll move after we find out. Hopefully, we can use that room. I'll find out. Send an email right now, Denise and Isabella. Let me know.
If we don't need any technology, any serious technology, I might be able to get the conference room that's down the hallway.
Okay. Ms. Bryant says she's providing dinner for everyone.
Oh, I didn't. I brought
Mrs.
candy
Springs,
last
send
time.
your, Mrs. Springs will send you her request.
Okay, yeah,
Mrs.
on my list.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. And I just sent that email, so we'll have an answer hopefully by tomorrow. Anything else? Yep, Mr. Vergamini. Yes, sir.
Is there anybody that doesn't like Dunkin' Donuts?
I don't need fat pills.
I like it.
You don't have to eat them. I'm just saying I'll gladly bring a couple dozen donuts to the meeting and we can nosh a little bit while we eat. But is there anybody that like is completely adverse? Maybe, I mean, if somebody's allergic to something, or if somebody has, is vegetarian, or if somebody is, I just want to be sensitive to anybody's particular issues if they have them. If they don't, I'll bring an assortment of donuts and you guys can have them or not.
I think we're gonna need the sugar.
I think so.
Mr. James.
Okay.
One of the things I was just going to ask, and I understand we're building out the meeting for the next one, but I think there are substantive issues that we've yet to address. And at the end of this month, we would have come to the conclusion of another quarter. And so I think the last time we had any numbers that's presented to the board regarding complaints received or any of that data was back in December when we were looking at a draft copy of the annual report. And I think that that's somehow the real work that we're supposed to be getting to seems to be getting lost. And so if it's possible, if we could get some updates on those numbers, what's coming through the PAB's website, what, complaints are being filed. I understand they're moving on, but at least some numbers and data to understand what is happening rather than waiting until the very end at all. I think that that's something we can do monthly. It doesn't have to wait until quarterly, but I think we're spending a lot of time on other things and not getting to the substantive matters and the root of what we all here to do. So again, I would ask that we put those items as priorities, and I recognize the strategic plan is somewhere on that priority list, but I think there are mandatory obligations that we need to get to first.
So, and in that, I know that, the ACC side, I know them fending over some cases. I know they were working on the process. A lot of the police departments, the cases weren't being sent over, and a lot of them had to be sent back because they weren't complete. And so Denise, I think you gave, I think it was 9. I think some other cases had to be sent. They were sent back to a police department because they were incomplete as well. And so the process has been really slow with the police department sending their pieces over. And so I know that the administrators from the ACC have been working really, really hard and pressing them to send those cases over. Denise,
And
do you have?
I
I
recognize
think what Mr.
what I'm
James is
saying
talking about is the
we get
complaints
direct
that come in.
complaints. We get
Okay,
direct
okay.
complaints to the PAB. Whether
Yeah,
we
I think
get
that's
them
what he's talking
through
about.
email portal, directly through the portal, whether we get them, email, we've not seen any of that data
Okay.
since December of 22.
Denise, do you have that?
To another quarter, and we're coming to another end of another quarter into March. And I'm saying you need to spend some time on the real work so that we understand those trends and analysis that we need to be following, and maybe informing some of the questions that we need to have in the conversations with the police chiefs, the community, whomever it may be. But again, we're not spending that time doing that. And I recognize there are other ideas on the table, but I think we need to get back to the basics as to what are the mandatory and required obligations of this board and prioritize getting those things done.
Okay. Denise, do you
And
have that?
Let me just ask Tangi a question. Tangi, isn't that information accessible to them on the team site?
A conversation was supposed to be had with legal counsel. I think she was going to follow up with the county attorney's office due to privacy issues, because these have not the cases that are coming to us, which we do capture in an Excel spreadsheet. They are ongoing cases with police personnel. So I think there was a conversation that was going to be had whether or not that information could be released to the board, since ACC has not rendered a decision yet. I have not heard anything back, but if we are approved, we can absolutely send that information.
But what we can do, we can tell you the numbers, the numbers and where we've sent them, pretty much the same information that we put in the annual report. I can give you that information tomorrow, but
Yeah.
I cannot give you the names of the complainants.
No, that's good.
And there is limited information in those complaints. Because I would have to give you the complaint for you to see all of the detail in the complaint in terms of the nature of their complaint. But we do have some data points that I can share.
I had 2 small questions that are sort of related to that. Very early on, I had kind of posed to the group, maybe we should meet more frequently as a response to the fact that we just have a lot of foundational work. We're building a lot, and then eventually we are going to be having work to do. And it's just constantly seems like there's a conflict about how much time we're spending in meetings. They're running long, but then we have this backlog of things that constantly keep coming up. And so, one, if we need to meet more frequently, I'll put that back on the table. I know the budget was the response that I was given. We got to be mindful of the budget. But at the initiation of this group, we were told we don't know what the budget's going to be. And so I think it's important that we do establish some level of what is needed so that we can propose what we might need in future years. And the work isn't going anywhere. Secondly, there was someone who made a recommendation that perhaps we might need to think about subcommittees who could be doing other things in between our regular meetings and then reporting back to the larger group. I don't know if that was inaccurate or my understanding was off, but maybe the sooner we maybe do some of that, we might be able to have some auxiliary work on the side being done so that when we come to these meetings, there's progress still being made. So and maybe that's a discussion for the next meeting. But those are two things I think we should discuss in an effort to try to be more productive.
In terms of the complaints coming in, we only get the complaint. I can only give you the complaints that have come into the agency because the police departments are not mandated to share those complaints with us. Some of them do, some of them don't. We requested, I think about as early as what Tangi, a few weeks back, from all the departments to send us, the universe of the complaints that you have. We've got some information from some, pushback from others, but we will compile all that information that we have received and get it to you before the end of the week. And then you all can look at that and determine whether or not you need to meet more frequently.
Mr. James?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate that response. I think it answers two questions. One, when I asked earlier what information requests we made to the chiefs and what's the status. Again, there was nothing, but now that is there. And my second is, I would say we need to put this on some type of regular interval and not to have to ask for this data. This is the data and the information that needs to be coming to this board and not being pulled out. And so I think it needs to be on the agenda, whether it's the first meeting of the month or it needs to have some rhythm so that we're addressing the matters. Because I hear Mr. Melton, we need to get to the business. That other stuff, put the foundational pieces and go, but we're spending a lot of time planning and not getting to the work. We got to fly this plane while we're building it. And I think we need to adapt to that situation.
I agree, but when we were trying to get through the administrative stuff, there was some that was thinking that we were going to fail with that when we didn't even have any of the cases. And so we were trying to do everything that we were supposed to do and moving to the point where we are now. So I think we're getting there. A lot of the times, like I said, a lot of times we get so bogged down in the weeds about things that we can make quick decisions about, and things that we can quickly decide, we spend a lot of time on. And so that's where a lot of the bulk of the meetings that I have seen so far that is taken up. But I believe that we'll get to that. So Denise, let me ask you this, and I agree with that, Mr. James. There will be a steady flow of that data coming in, correct?
If you tell me if you want it quarterly, weekly, or however, we will get it to you, on the time frame that you want it on.
So we should have it on every meeting.
Okay, we can give it to you every meeting. We probably haven't we had at the end of last year, maybe 34 complaints. We haven't gotten in very much more than that since then.
Okay.
But we will produce something.
So we need to make sure we're getting things done.
Okay, yeah, that we're gonna get things done. Ms. Brown, I'm sorry, you had your hand up again?
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback on what Mr. James was saying in that my understanding of what this committee would be is like the complaints come to the board. And by that, I guess the staff is who they're coming to, and we don't have transparency. We don't know what those things are. And so I think that it's important that we do have that. So what you just said about having that information reported at every meeting, I think that's vital.
Well, the legislation only says that we receive the complaints and we pass them on. We really don't have a role in any kind of role in processing or doing anything with these complaints. But we do keep a record of everything that we come in, and we will share that with you.
Right. That's what I'm saying, because you know about it, but we don't know what you know.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question?
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. O'Neill.
Is it possible for the board to get a copy of the budget?
Sure.
Okay. I would like to see what the breakdown of it and everything.
Okay, and the budget, it is I can get it to you, but it's also posted on the county's website. It's public.
There. Okay.
And the budget proposal for the next fiscal year, has that it's already been developed?
I'm not talking about the big amount. I'm just talking about the breakdown and stuff.
Yeah, the breakdown is also posted. And what was your question, Ms. Bryan?
My question was the budget for the next fiscal year, has that been developed yet?
They are working on it. The county executive has not presented her budget. She'll be presenting it. It's due to the council on the 15th. And she will be presenting her budget on the 15th. I can give you, what I can share with you is a budget proposal.
So the budget proposal as it relates to us.
Yes.
Yes, if
But
you
the
could share that
actual
with the.
approved, the budget has not been approved, so I don't know what the.
No, I understand that. I'm just
Okay.
saying what we're asking for, what we're.
Yes,
what
I
we
can
think
share
our-
that with you as well.
Thank you so much.
Because, yeah, because that's what I like to see, because the county exec, I guess, the budget she put you in the council is what you give her. Isn't that right? If I'm looking at budgets, I mean, the budget.
We have a base, we're basically given a start on the budget.
Mhm.
Which last year's budget was based on the CCOP's budget with some changes made once the legislation was made, and we worked from there. So last year, our budget was, I can't remember. This year, the budget is 579,000.
See, but Denise, I mean, Ms. Hall, you have to look at, but the council, now I'm talking about with the council, and like I said before, and you look at, and you put it in the book, that the budgets can go as much as 1% of the police budget.
Correct.
And that's in writing. And I'm just saying, but the budget that I would like to see is what we're presenting to the county exec to present to the council, whatever to pass, I mean, that's what.
Yeah, that's the budget proposal. What we do is we start with last year as a base, and then we build on it, and we put in any kind of increases that are mandated, any IT costs or anything, and then any enhancements that we want, we put in there. Then OMB at that point takes it over and decide whether or not those enhancements will be granted. And they present their budget to the county executive. She approves it to go to the county council, and then we go through the county council approval process.
And that's where we talk when we're talking about.
Yeah, I can get that budget to you.
Okay, because we have to also, when we're talking about time and meetings and getting stuff done, in the area of increased funds for us to have more meetings than we had this year or this quarter or whatever. We have to look at those kind of things along with, refreshments or whatever. And I'm not saying that to be funny neither, you know what I mean? I mean, those are budget items that you put in budgets, you know what I mean? When you do a board or a department and things like that, you know what I mean? Because we have to, we're meeting more because we're making sure that we're a viable board, you know what I mean? Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you, Denise. Anybody have anything else? I'm sorry, Mr. James, did you have your hand up?
I did not. I can put it up. I can come up with questions all night, but I'm not.
No.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna ask. I'm just gonna put out a blanket statement. I've made some information requests, some emails, legitimate questions. I haven't heard back on those legitimate questions at all. And so I'm trying to get through these meetings and I'm asking individual questions, but know that I'm trying to address those outside so I can be prepared to come to this meeting to work and not keep asking questions.
Okay, so we're going to do our best to answer the questions that you've asked, that you posed. Denise, please, let's make sure we get those questions answered for him, and then we can move forward.
Okay.
Thank you. So does anybody else have anything else? Mr. Bennett, did you want to say anything else, sir? Okay, we know you're busy. I know you're working 24 hours, so we'll take that as a no. All right. Well, that's
Springs.
Mrs. Spring.
I'm good.
Okay, Mrs. Spring.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So as far as the next meeting, whether it'll be in person or not, you're gonna send us an email after this meeting.
Well, I think we should meet in person, like Mrs. Bryant suggested.
Okay.
I guess based off of the room, we'll know where we're going to meet.
So it's going to be in person, just a matter of where.
Yes, ma'am. I am not messing with Mrs. Bryant. She said in person, we're going to be in person. So, yeah, okay.
Marine, right?
I guess we can say the in-person meeting will be in in the building. It's just which room it will be in.
Okay, right, thank you. All right. Well, that being it, that's it. Anybody have anything else? Ms. Ridley, you look like you have something you want to say, ma'am? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Bergamini has his hand up. Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we close this meeting,
Gonna close it?
end it, terminate the meeting.
Okay, adjourn it.
If-
Okay.
If there's no further questions or anything, then I make the motion that we end the meeting.
Watch Mr. James go ahead and second that. Watch this.
Kelvin, I just need to ask a question about the police accountability training.
Yes, ma'am.
Kelvin, did you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I was asking about the police academy training.
Citizens Police Academy.
Yeah, I went to actually take my form up to District 2,
Okay.
and they act like they didn't know what I was talking about, but they told me they'll keep the form.
So do me a favor. I'll email me the form and I'll
Okay.
send it over to Sergeant Johnson, who runs that. And
Okay.
make sure you get in for the class, because I think the next class starts next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yep. So I'll make sure you get into that.
Could we also receive notice of when the classes are and in what locations? Because I'd like to attend as well.
So yeah, I think that they send those out as well, but I'll ask her to send something for the next session, because those are 12-week sessions. So I know they just had one. So this session coming up in March. So I think the next one will be sometime like in September, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll get that information.
So that's not the 8 hours a day thing.
No, this is
No.
no. Oh no, that was the ACC training. This is training for Citizens Police Academy that the police department gives
Oh,
for Prince George's County residents. And it's a 12-week course. I think it's 3 hours every Monday for 12 weeks.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll get that information out to everyone and we can look at that. And I'm sure Tangi probably already has it, but I'll make sure I check with Sergeant Johnson, who runs that program, tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Denise was talking to Sergeant Johnson about a hybrid for
Yes.
the board.
Yes, I know Sergeant Johnson had mentioned that. Yeah. Mrs. Bryant has, she really wants to be a police officer, really, so. But we'll get that over. And then, Marsha, make sure you just send me that information. I'll get it to her by tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Vergamini, Mr. James, somebody was getting ready to say something. I'm sorry. Before.
Bergamini was waiting for a second, I guess.
Oh, yeah, Mr. James was getting. Go ahead, Mr. James.
I'll reword Mr. Bergamini just a little bit. There being no further business, I move to adjourn until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay,
I'll second that.
thank you. We'll go ahead and take a quick roll. So Marvin, you'll be proud of me. There goes, yes. Dr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Melton,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill,
Aye.
Mrs. Ridley,
Aye,
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes, and good night.
and good night.
Mrs. Springs,
Aye.
Mr. Vergamini,
Yes, please.
Ms. Sheila Bryant,
Yes.
and Mr. Keena James.
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 8:01.
And the chair, how does the chair vote?
I said yes. I marked it
All
when
right.
I said yes.
Just checking.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vergamini. The meeting adjourned at 8:01 p.m. Have a great evening, everyone.